From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, and welcome to the National Book Festival, now in its 16th year. I'm sorry that I'm not Rain. I have to keep you 2 more minutes until she comes out. But my name is Nora, and I'm a books editor at the Washington Post, and we are a charter sponsor of the festival. And what can I say? We all love Raina. This book I just gave to my daughter, who's 7, last week, and we were in a bookstore, and she didn't have anything to say, and I asked her, how did she like the book? How was it going? And she didn't say anything. And then I said, next weekend I might be meeting that author. What do you think? Do you like her? She didn't say anything, and then I just was about to say something else, and she turned around and said those words that every parent wants to hear. Mom, stop asking me questions. I'm reading. So I really want to thank Raina for, we're now already on, I think, her 3rd or 4th of this week, and I've got more coming in the mail. But anyway, so we have, of course, there's Smile, Sisters, and Ghosts, and Babysitters Club, and I bet you've all experienced what I have, and I know thousands of other people feel this way, because I just saw a notice that Raina has, I think, 5 books on the bestseller list, in the New York Times bestseller list this week, which is a pretty amazing achievement and very, very much well-deserved. She's really inspired a lot of young readers, and I love to see all of you out here. I just have one small bit of housekeeping, is that I hope you all were able to get your books signed earlier today. She's not going to be able to be signing after this event, so I hope you were able to do that. She loves to meet you all, but we've got a lot of you here. So without further ado, Raina Telgemeier.
Hi, guys. How's everybody doing? Awesome. So I'm Raina, and I think we're going to just quickly do a test to make sure my clicker works. It does. Excellent. So I'm the creator of some graphic novels, Smile, Sisters, Drama, the Babysitters Club graphic novels, and my newest graphic novel is called Ghosts. And to introduce you guys to this book, what I'd love to do is get a couple of people to come up here and read a chapter with me on stage. So we need 2 readers. We need somebody to play Kat, who's the older sister, and she's a little sarcastic, and she's a little, not happy to be here. So I guess I need somebody who's really not happy to be here at all today, just really having a horrible time. Are you having a horrible time today with the hat, my friend? Can you fake it? You're a good actor. Let's get you up on stage. All right, and now we need somebody to play Maya, who's a little sister, and she is a ball of energy. She is excited about everything. You also need to be a very good reader to play this role. Are you a good reader? Okay, let's get you up on stage. All right, here's the thing, though. I think we need to stand off the stage so that we can see the screen better. So come on down now that I've gotten you up here. And I actually have a job for the audience as well. So what I want for you guys to do is to do all of the sound effects. So we need a rehearsal very quickly. This doesn't require you guys to yell because there's so many people in this room. But if we can do a sound effect for a cell phone like this on the screen, what would that sound like? It's good. And then what about this one? All right, you are going to see this sound effect 3 times in this story. So the first time I want it to be very quiet. So let's try that, real quiet. Okay, then slightly louder. And then super loud. This is going to be so good. Okay, what about this one? How about this? All right, so this one's a little different. Maya has cystic fibrosis, and that means that she wears this special vest to help kick the mucus out of her lungs and make it easier for her to cough up. So for this one, I want this half of the audience to do the sound of Maya's vest, which you see on screen. So let's try that from here on over. Okay, and you guys on this side of the room get to pound on your chests while you sing. All right, now everybody all together, please. Amazing. All right, so this story starts the way every good story does, at a fake In-N-Out burger, because I can't use In-N-Out as copyright infringement in my books. And now, Kat and Maya, you guys are going to stand next to me. We have to share the microphone. We're going to read off the screen. Dad starts off by saying 1 double back combo, 1 cheese back with fries, a double Napoleon shake, and then Maya says,
Don't forget my soda!
here you go, girls.
Do they have double back burger in our new town, Dad?
I don't think so, Kat. They only have them down here in Southern California.
What are we even going to eat in our new town?
We are moving up north and to the coast. Dad got a new job, but we all know the real reason we're going. My little sister Maya, she's not a healthy kid. I'm trying not to be selfish. Text says, hey, Kat, my bubby's cooking dinner tonight. You want to come over? Oh, right, I forgot. But it's hard. You okay back there, Kat?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Maya has cystic fibrosis. It's a thing you're born with. It affects breathing and digestion. How about a little music? Click. And this is the part where I tell you guys that I could not use the actual lyrics from Frozen, so instead of using those lyrics, we used let it out, can't hold it in, gotta shout. And there's no cure. Mom and Dad are dragging us to this gloomy place, Bahia de la Luna, California. They say the sun only shines here 62 days of the year. When I heard that, I'd said,
Ew, I'd rather die!
which did not go over very well.
I'm gonna miss Ari and Maggie and Hubba.
Of course I don't want to die, and I want Maya to be as healthy as possible. Duh.
You mean all of my friends? What about your friends?
They're my friends too.
Cat?
Yes, Maya, they're your friends too.
This is it, girls.
The green one?
No, the little red one.
Kat, this place is so cool. I can't believe we get to live here. Look, look, look. The ocean is so close.
It's freezing. I'm going inside. So dark in here.
What do you think, Kat?
It's dark.
It's perfect.
Kat! Gasp, Pant. Come see my new. Come downstairs. Come see my new room.
Okay, I'm coming. Hey, it's cozy in here.
Watch this. Cannonball! Cough, cough, cough. Or
It's about time for your breathing treatment, Maya. Oh, yeah. The vest helps loosen the mucus in her lungs. Her soul does not need any loosening, though.
Mom?
Maya's vest just blew a fuse, sweetie. You okay up there?
Yeah, I just don't know this house very well yet.
Why don't you take your sister to explore the town while we work on getting the power back on? And so?
ooh, it's a secret pathway.
Maya, we don't know what's down there.
Maybe this path will lead us to. Kitty!
it.
Why not? It's so cute.
Because you know what they say about letting a black cat cross your path. It's bad luck. And you've had enough bad luck lately. Come on, let's see where this thing leads. I'm actually feeling cold.
Oh no. Okay, the last word is whoa, and it doesn't, it's sort of small, so just get ready.
Okay. Whoa.
Awesome job, you guys. Thank you. You can have a seat. Okay, where's Sheila Murray? There she is. Okay, I forgot. I knew I was going to forget. I want to take a selfie with you guys. Can we do that? Okay. We might have to take two because it's such a big crowd. So I've been doing this at every event that I do, and then I put them on Instagram, and I'm Go Raina there. So everybody here, it's best if you hold up your books or your arms and look as amazing as possible. So one, and then one on this direction. Yeah. Right side of the room. Okay, thanks so much, you guys. All right, so quickly, I'm going to talk a little bit about comics and about why I make them, how I make them, starting with my influences and my inspiration, because the number one question that comics creators and writers get asked is, what inspired you? What influenced your work? And for me, kind of goes back to something kind of important, cartoons on television. I loved anything animated, the Smurfs and Scooby-Doo, anything Disney. I also love to read, and some of my favorite books were realistic contemporary fiction. That means books about kids who were kind of like me. So a lot of my favorites were things like The Babysitter's Club and Judy Blume and Ramona books. And then I discovered comic strips when I was 9 years old in the newspaper. The first comic strip I fell in love with was Calvin and Hobbes, which is about a boy named Calvin and his tiger, Hobbes. And these two have big imaginations. They're very funny. I love reading this comic strip because it was very interesting, but it was also just super fun to look at. I loved the drawings. It's just lines on paper, and yet to me, these characters felt like they were alive. My other favorite comic was For Better or For Worse by Lynn Johnston. This is a comic about a very average suburban family. There's a mom and a dad and a brother and a sister. And I also have a mom and a dad and a brother and a sister. So it was kind of like reading about my own life, except in comics. The unique thing about For Better or For Worse is the fact that the characters all aged in real time. So every year they would get older, and so would I. And I was about the same age as the kids, so it was almost like we were growing up together. It was almost like they were my next door neighbors or my best friends and not comic strip characters. So the lines were very blurred between what was real and what was fiction. And then when I was 10, my dad gave me this book to read. It's called Barefoot Gen, a cartoon story of Hiroshima. So this was sort of a true life account of the author's experience living through the atomic bombing of Japan during World War II. And so I started to read this book. It was about these kids, and they run around, and they sing, and they dance, and they're very silly. And I was actually kind of enjoying it. And then at the end of the book, the bomb falls, and half the characters in the story actually die. And so when I read this, three things happened. Number one, I was really mad at my dad for giving me this book to read. Number two, I was mad that such a horrible thing had happened in the world. And number three, I was mad because I thought that comics were supposed to be fun. I thought they were supposed to make you laugh and feel happy. And this book did the opposite. So it was kind of like the rug had been pulled out from under me, but it made me aware of the fact that comics could be incredibly powerful ways to tell stories. Any kind of story you want. So I sort of filed that away in my head for later. And this is what the interior looked like. It was a manga. It was created in the 70s in Japan. It was in black and white. Then I went back to reading fun stuff. So Bone by Jeff Smith is something I discovered when I was in college. Anybody here read Bone by Jeff Smith? Awesome. So those of you that have your hands in the air, did you guys read this book in color or in black and white? I'm hearing mostly color, a few black and whites. When I read Bone, it looked like this. It was a black and white comic. And that's because Jeff Smith, the artist and the writer, used to self-publish. And that means he was spending his own money to print and distribute it. And it's a lot cheaper to do that with black and white comics than it is to do so with color ones. So that's how influences work. You put everything into the blender inside of your brain, and what comes out are the types of things you like to draw, the kinds of stories you like to tell. It's all influence going inside of you, and then what comes out is kind of your own stamp on things. And so now I'm going to show you some of my early work, because another thing people always want to know is, were you always this good at drawing? And I'm like, yeah, obviously. So what you see on the left there is a scribble from just before my second birthday. And just like most kids, my parents gave me crayons and paper to play with. And I just really liked it. So I just kept going. And eventually I got better. What you see on the right, I believe from around my 4th birthday. And I don't know why these are people with pizza faces. But I mean, I was, they looked like more than a scribble at that point. That's me and my sister Amara. She is 5 years younger than me. So for a brief period, I was a better artist than her, but she then very quickly became a better artist than me. And you can see a few of my drawings on the wall back there. It's, I believe, the Easter Bunny, because it's a rabbit with a basket, and then a mermaid there on the right of my head. When I was in 1st grade, I had this amazing teacher named Miss Stupenkoff. And she made up for her silly-sounding name by being one of the best teachers I have ever had. She gave us this super cool assignment where she gave us each a diary. And so one day she'd write us a letter, and then the next day we'd write her a letter in response. We did this for the entire year. And since I was just learning to write, I found this diary pretty recently, and I could see my own writing skills improve over the course of that year. But what I also realized, and I didn't even remember this part, was that I used to make comics in my little diary. So as early as age 6, I was making comics. I had never even read a comic at this point, and yet somehow my brain was just tuned to thinking in words and pictures together. So this is my graduation program from 5th grade. You can certainly see the influence of For Better or For Worse on my work at this point. And that's around the same time I started making my own comic strips. And here's the thing, I was not very good at it. In fact, I'd say I was terrible at it. I didn't know how to put panel borders on things. I didn't really know how to put dialogue together and how to do punchlines. But the point is, I stuck with it. And over the course of time, I got a little bit better. I'm not saying my comics were funny at this point. I'm just saying that I kept with it. And eventually, I got a little bit better. An illustration from my 7th grade yearbook. At this point, my whole goal was just to observe. So what were my friends wearing? What did they look like? How did they stand? What was their body language? All that stuff was really important to me. And I kept a diary in comic format, just like I did in 1st grade, pretty much all the way through the end of college. So anything my friends and I did, I would illustrate. This is us going to the supermarket for lunch and talking about the gross types of deli meats that they had. I was the illustrator for my high school newspaper. This one was about prom dates, which type of prom date you were. And eventually I had to figure out where I was going to go to college. And I chose to go to a place called the School of Visual Arts, which is in New York City. And I moved there all the way from California. So why that school in particular? Well, you can go there and you can take painting and sculpture, photography, but you can also go there and get a degree in cartooning, which makes your mom really happy that you have like a diploma for your wall that says comics on it. But for some reason, this is another reason I wanted to go to New York, is because New York is awesome. Sesame Street told me that once upon a time, and then the movie Oliver and Company sold it to me again when I was a little older. So yes, you can take all those usual art school things. This is a different presentation than I usually give, so that's why I'm a little rusty here. So here's the thing. I decided to be an illustration major at this school. And that just means you're getting better at focusing on single images, painting and drawing to make your single images beautiful. But I'd go to my painting class, for example, what you see here. The teacher would say, I would like a painting about a magical transformation. And I'd go, okay, well, that's cool. How about if I do 2 paintings instead? And maybe after that painting is done, I'll do 3. Could I also maybe do 4? 5? My teachers were like, Raina, just 1 painting. And I was like, lots and lots of paintings. But what do they look like when you line them all up against a wall? They look like a comic, right? That's all comics are. They are just words and pictures and sequence that tell a story. So we did take a lot of cartooning classes there, and this is where I just had the most fun, and I made comics like this one, which is about the fact that my college had a lot of stairs. And this one, which is about my very first cup of tea, a super fascinating subject, right? This is the entire comic, just 1 page. And my goal was to capture a mood and a memory on paper. And that's what most of my short stories were about, was just these little memories I had in my head. So I took all these ideas, all these short stories, and collected them into something called mini comics. And that simply means a comic that you make yourself by hand. So I would go to the Xerox machine, I would print my pages out, and then fold them and staple them into these little booklets called mini comics. I called my series Takeout. I did 7 issues. Each one was 12 pages long, black and white short stories, mostly about my childhood. And altogether, I managed to print and distribute about 7,000 copies of these little comics. And it's not like I just walked out my front door and said, hey guys, I have comics. Who wants them? I had to figure out how to get them into people's hands. So I would go to comic book stores and I would tell them that I was a creator and ask if they wanted to sell my work there. And so they'd take half the commission and I would take the other half. I sold my books for $1 a piece. That meant that sometimes I'd get a check in the mail for like $2.50. And I was like, yeah. But that's what's cool about comics is there's almost no barrier for entry. So anybody who wants to do this can. You don't need that many tools. You can use a computer. You can use a pencil. All you have to do is print your books out and you can say that you're a self-publisher, which is really empowering. I also used to go to comic conventions a lot. And this is where, 150,000 people who love comics get together and geek out for a weekend. So it's like the National Book Festival, only it's all comics. And you get a lot of people who are fans. You get a lot of cosplay. You meet fellow creators, you meet writers and artists and editors, and all of the big publishers go. So it's Marvel Comics and DC Comics and Archie Comics. And in the center of all of that, self-publishers like me could also get a small table and sell my work to that same audience. So one of the people I met at a comic convention was a guy named David Saylor, who was the editorial director at Scholastic and was starting up something called the Graphics Imprint. And that means that Scholastic, who's the publisher of, the Harry Potter series and the Hunger Games and all this other amazing stuff, was going to start publishing comics too. And the first comic they published was Bone by Jeff Smith. So if you've read it in color, it's because Scholastic republished it that way. And they asked me if I wanted to work with them. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. But the problem is the longest story I had ever written at that point in my life was 8 pages long. Graphic novels tend to be like 100 pages long. So I was like, what am I going to do for these guys? And the answer was to go back to something I was a huge fan of when I was a kid. And that would be the Babysitters Club. And this is fan art I did of the Babysitters Club when I was 10 years old. So I really have been a fan for a very long time. So what I ended up doing was to take this old favorite series of mine and to adapt it into graphic novel format. So what on earth does that mean, to adapt something? Well, this is what the books used to look like. Just words, no pictures. But of course, these novels were full of exposition, and that means it was describing what was happening in a scene. So it would say, Claudia is sitting on her bed, she's wearing this particular outfit, she's eating Milk Duds, and she turns to Christy, who's sitting in the director's chair, and she says, so that's what I would draw. And then all of the dialogue that was in the books went right into the comics. So this is what they looked like when I was done with them. And you might notice that something's missing, which is the color. All of my comics used to be in black and white, so we didn't think it was too strange for me to publish the Babysitters Club comics in black and white. But of course, 10 years later, we realized that kids really do like to read color comics. So these books have been republished in color by Scholastic just recently, and it's the same colorist who worked with me on Sisters and Ghosts. His name is Braden Lamb, and he is fantastic. So it's been really amazing to see these books get sort of a new life. And in fact, people always want to know if there are more Babysitters Club graphic novels coming. And I say there are, but I'm not going to be the person to draw them. So, but here's what's amazing. They're being drawn by an artist named Gail Galligan. She used to be my assistant. So she's somebody who's very near and dear to me, and she's an amazing artist. And I think the first book comes out next summer. So this is going to be Dawn and the Impossible 3, BSC Graphics number 5. So I think you guys will like that a lot too. So I'm going to talk about Smile. Thanks. So Smile is kind of the book that changed my life, and it's a true story. And for those of you that haven't read Smile, I'm going to summarize it for you. So one evening, after a Girl Scouts meeting, I was in 6th grade. I was running home with 2 of my friends, and I tripped and I fell and I knocked out my 2 front permanent teeth. And then I had to spend the rest of middle school and half of high school without them. And that meant dealing with surgery and braces and headgear and false teeth and all sorts of things that made me feel like I was a freak. And do you guys want to see a photograph of what that looked like? If you don't, I'm really sorry. I'm going to show it to you anyway. So what happened was I fell and I knocked one tooth completely out. It was lying on the pavement. And the other one got shoved up into my gum. And then my dentist's solution to that problem was to put them both back in place. But when he did so, as you can see, suddenly my 2 front teeth sat up a little higher in my mouth than they were supposed to. I think the bones above my teeth had been damaged as well. So all of a sudden I had this weird gap in the front that made me look a little bit like a vampire. And that's where I got the name Vampire Girl. And that's when people started teasing me and asking me what was wrong with my face and why I looked so weird. And I was already sort of a self-conscious kid to begin with. I was very shy. So having people up in my face all the time when I was already like going through puberty and stuff, was not exactly the way I wanted to spend 6th grade, but I did not have a choice. So the story has a lot of dentistry in it. This scene, I'm getting an impression of my mouth made, which means that it's that tray full of sticky stuff that they shove up into your mouth, and then you have to lie there and wait while it hardens, and it's horrible, and you're gagging. But then when you spit it out, you get a perfect mold of your teeth, and that part's kind of cool. In this scene, I got a set of false teeth on a retainer that looked really good and normal when I had it in, but when I popped it out, I could scare my friends. That part was fun. And there's a flashback sequence to the time I lost my first front tooth as a 6-year-old kid in a carnival in a bounce house. And everything was great. I was bouncing, I was having a super fun time until I got too close to the netting that's on the side of the bounce house. So I bounced up, and when I bounced down, my front tooth hooked on the net and went flying into the air. And because this happened in a gravel parking lot, I never found my tooth. So people always want to know if this is a true story. Did this thing really happen? Did that part really happen? Is your name really Raina? Do you really have brown hair? Oh my gosh! Everything is real. Everything is true. I do sometimes alter details. So for example, in the first chapter of Smile, I learn I need braces in the afternoon. I go to a Girl Scout meeting, we talk about it, and then that night I trip and fall and knock out my 2 front teeth. That did not all happen on the same day. So for the sake of the timeline of the story, sometimes I will compress details. Sometimes I change people's names to protect the guilty, as we say. But my family is real, as am I. And so this is us as comic strip characters. They think that's pretty cool. My friends are a slightly different story. Now, these are the people who teased me and called me names and bullied me just a little bit. But I managed to represent almost all of them in this story. Like I said, some names were changed to protect the guilty. And then after Smile, before I talk about that, I'm going to tell you that the other thing that's real is my clothing. So kids, ask your parents to dig up their photos from 1991, and I guarantee you they will also have some acid wash denim and some scrunchies and hopefully some mock turtlenecks. Oh yeah. So after Smile, I wrote a book called Drama, and this was my first stab at fiction, but it's only just so fictionalized. So it's about a girl named Callie and her 2 best friends, Jesse and Justin, who are twin gay Filipino boys. And I happen to also have best friends who are gay twin Filipino boys. So, I mean, their names aren't Jesse and Justin, but it's basically like our friendship, except fictionalized and put into a book. And these kids are all on the stage crew at their school, and that means they're the ones who are running the lights and the sound and making costumes and props. And I always like to stop here and give props to the people over there who are running my tech, because without them, I would not be standing here right now. Thank you, guys. Stage crew is a really important job, and these are the kids who love to do it. So I wanted to make a story about those kids. And it's kind of inspired by my life in that I was definitely a musical theater and stage kid when I was in high school and middle school, but I was never the leading lady. I was always in the ensemble, which is the kids who stand back here and like sing 3 lines in the show and not the whole thing. So I'd get cast as like aristocrat number 7 or hobo number 3 or child. So I'm not behind the podium because I am almost the same height as it. Very short. So I spent a lot of time backstage just kind of observing and being aware of what was going on during shows. And that was always really cool to me. I wanted to sort of capture that essence. This is also one of the things that inspired Drama. I was in student government in school, and I had a role called the art commissioner, which means that most of what my job was to paint big posters for dances. So this is me and my friend Jake, who's totally the inspiration for Jesse. I totally had a crush on him. He totally did not have a crush on me. That was weird. It was a little awkward, but yeah, if you read Drama, you have a little bit of a sense of why that was. So, and here's Callie painting. She's making a gigantic tree prop for her school. And this is a tree prop I made one time for my Girl Scout play. It's just like a little cylinder tube of paper with like pipe cleaners and leaves and stuff at the top. So after Smile and after Drama, people were just like, we want to hear more stories about your life. And I realized that there was one page in Smile that talked about a road trip my family took when I was a kid. We drove from San Francisco to Colorado. And what an eventful trip it was. And I realized I could make an entire book based on that experience. So that's what Sisters is. It's about being stuck in the back seat of your car with your little sister And in my case, it was also a chance to examine my relationship with Amara, which, like I said, we're both artists, and that's one of the only things we have in common. We're very different people, and I wanted to understand us a little bit better. So it goes back into our lives, and we talk about what it was like to have her as a baby. And then as we grew up, I guess one of the things you could say we had in common was all of our childhood pets and the misbegotten ways that they died. So here's a picture where you see how excited we are to get our first goldfish, and then a photo that tells you how exciting goldfish actually are. Amara loves snakes, and I hate snakes. And the reason I hate them so much is because when I was little, my family went camping, and I was picking blackberries, and I was like in the middle of the patch, and then I accidentally stepped on something rubbery and looked down, and there was a dead snake under my sandal. So I ran out of there, and I got all scratched and scraped up by thorns. My family thought it was hilarious, and I did not think it was hilarious. But my sister was like, I am totally getting a snake for a pet someday. And I was like, you are totally not. And then my parents totally bought it for her. And they promised me that it would never bother me. I would never have to see it or feed it or touch it. It would definitely never get out of its cage or anything like that. Well, if you've read this book, you know the snake does get out of its cage. And it got into my family's car. And then it stayed there for 6 months. I didn't even know snakes could do that, but apparently they can. We thought maybe it had gotten out. We thought it must have died. No, it did not. And of course, the snake story and the road trip story intersect in this delightful space. So I'm not going to say any more about that because I want to talk about my book, Ghosts, which has been out for a little over a week. And it's already like I'm meeting kids who are like, this is my favorite book that you've written. And I'm just like, wow, did you read it like today? And they're like, yeah, I read it in your signing line. So that's super awesome. But it also took me 2 years to make this book. So it's the curse and the blessing of being a graphic novelist. I'm grateful either way. It's been a really fun week, and I've been on book tour and haven't been home for about 2 weeks. So it's really amazing to be standing in front of you guys today talking about it. So this book has actually existed longer than 2 years. It's been in my head for a very long time. And these sketches that are in the back of the book, I did in 2008. And I had been thinking about these characters for a lot longer. So it's about this girl, Kat, who's 11, and her little sister, Maya, who has cystic fibrosis. And of course, they moved to the town of Bahia de la Luna because they think that the sea air is going to be better for Maya's lungs. And Bahia de la Luna is not a real place, but it's inspired by a place called Half Moon Bay, California, which is not too far from where I grew up. And it's this very windswept, beachy, foggy place. It's very cool and mysterious. They also have a lot of pumpkin farms there, so it's where you go for Halloween in order to get your pumpkins. And I always thought, what a cool place to set a story. What a cool place to set a ghost story, in fact. So that's what I did. And these are just some of my old sketches, sort of trying to capture the atmosphere of the place. So the girls move there, and Kat is not happy about it. She doesn't want to leave her friends behind. They're from Southern California, where it's much warmer, so she doesn't like the cold weather. That's another thing she and I have in common, is I'm not a huge fan of the fog. But one of the first things that happens is they meet their neighbor Carlos, who explains to them that the town is haunted and it is filled with ghosts. And Maya's really excited to meet a ghost, and that's probably because she's not a healthy kid. So she wants to know what's going to happen to her if she happens to die. And Kat, who's a little bit more like me, is very anxious, and she's worried, and she doesn't want to meet the ghosts at all because she's afraid that they're going to harm her sister. So they go anyway, and they go up to this old mission that's near their house, and that's where they're looking for ghosts. Kat's completely losing her mind and super afraid, and then she ends up being the first one to see a ghost. And then she gets to know the ghosts a little bit. And this is what happens when you're scared of something. Sometimes if you confront your fear, or you get to know it a little bit, you might be surprised that it's not quite as scary as you think it is. So Kat gets to know the ghosts, and then the next thing she knows, they're becoming her friends, and they're having fun together. So that's just one of the themes in the story. And it was inspired by a lot of different things in my life, but it was definitely about confronting fear and anxiety. So here's a couple of photographs that I took when I was researching the book and doing my location scouting, just like you would for a film. I took lots and lots of photographs of beach towns and, you know, the cliffs above the ocean, and really tried to get this atmosphere into my stories. And this is me at one of the missions. There are 21 missions in California, and you can go and visit most of them. And I believe this is at Mission Carmel. And when you're there, you can almost feel history everywhere around you. You can sort of feel the ghosts. And so again, that was something I wanted to capture in this story. So very quickly, I'm just going to tell you about my process, because this is something people are very curious about. They want to talk to me about it, but it's actually easier to show how I work, because my entire process is visual. So when I write stories, this is what they look like. Yes, that's right. I write in a visual format called thumbnails, which is what you see on the screen. So a thumbnail simply means like a rough draft version or a blueprint or a sketch of every single page where you're indicating the panel borders, the characters are stick figures, all of the dialogue is there, all of the sound effects are there. And this is a great way for me to see how comics are paced out. As you guys saw with the reading, there's a lot of silent panels, and there's a lot of sort of panels where sound effect and the pictures do a lot of the talking. So that's how I write. This is how my ideas come out of my head and onto the page. And then once I am done with those, I've done an entire book of thumbnails, 250 pages. I send them to my editor, and we edit from this stage. So that's where I go to make my corrections too. I just redraw my thumbnails. So depending on the book, that takes, I thumbnailed Sisters in a month, which is crazy. Most of the time it takes me anywhere between 2 and 6 months to create a script. And then once I'm done with that, I move on to pencils. And for this, I'm using a type of paper called Bristol board, which is just a little bit thicker and smoother and heavier than regular paper. And here I'm simply spending more time on the artwork. So I'm going to go back a slide and show you guys what my thumbnails look like, and you can compare that to the final art. It's all of the same information. It's just that I have spent more time creating the art. And then directly over that same piece of paper, I ink, and I am still very old school and traditional. I use a watercolor brush. For those of you that are like, what kind of brush is it? It's a Winsor & Newton Series 7 Sable brush, number 2 size. And if you're like, well, what? It's on my website, goreina.com, so you can check it out there. And a type of India ink that's waterproof that I really like. And then a small liner pen for things like eyeballs, shirt buttons, really small details. And then everything looks like that when all is said and done. So I told you that Ghosts took 2 years, and that's time at the desk. That's not time thinking about it. It's 2 years to actually create the book. Each Babysitters Club book took 1 year to create, and Smile took me 5 years from start to finish to create. So I always tell people, I hope you're not an impatient person if you want to make comics, because it does require you to be patient. But for me, it's worthwhile. It's my art form. I love it the best. It's my favorite way to tell stories. So everything gets scanned into a computer, and now I bring the files into a program called Photoshop. This is where I make all of my corrections. This is where the coloring gets done. And I don't do my own color work. I work with a guy named Braden Lamb who does my colors. And it's really awesome seeing my pages kind of come to life once they get colored. And then everything gets assembled digitally. So the lettering gets put in, and the page numbers and stuff like that. And then we also work on the covers this way. I mean, I do a sketch, and then the publisher picks one, and then I work it up into a finished sketch and then a finished piece of art. We put all the titles on and assemble it into this great package. That whole thing is digital. We send the files to Asia, and they're printed in Singapore. And then the books come back on a boat, and that takes a while too. But holding your book for the first time in your hands never gets old. I have created 8 books at this point in my career, and every time a new one comes out, I'm just like, wow, it's like I had a baby or something. No, it's nothing like that. I've actually never had a baby, so I don't know. But I can only imagine that you've put so much love and care into this thing, into making this thing, and then it arrives, and then it's kind of like it takes on a life of its own. And each of my books definitely has a life of its own. People always want to know what is my favorite book that I've created, and it is like saying picking your favorite child. Like, how could you do that? Some of you are like, no, I could do that, but I don't think I could. You love them all. So what's next? I mean, I've had a book out for a week and a half. So, like, shouldn't I take a little bit of time off? Of course not. That's not how it works in this business. We're always thinking about what's next. So for me, it's going to be, this is just a big spoiler for you guys, I'm going to do another memoir. And this one's going to be about me and my dad and a certain book that he gave me to read when I was 10 years old, and how that book changed my entire life. So that's all I can say about it for now. This is about as much as I've got done, maybe 20, 25 pages of thumbnails. And so you can see us going to the bookstore at San Francisco State University where he used to teach, and then we're geeking out together in the comic book section. And I don't have a title for this book yet, but it should be out sometime in 2018. So cross your fingers for me that my hand holds up through all this process. Yeah, and I plan to never stop doing this. If I can do this my entire life, I absolutely plan to. It's an absolute joy. I'm so happy I get to work for you guys, and it's just been a great ride. So thank you so much. What's the time? 5 minutes? Okay, we have time for just a few questions. So if you've got questions, we're going to go this side and then this side. Make them as quick as you can, and I will try to answer as many as possible.
What is your favorite book that you've wrote?
I can't answer that question because it's like choosing your favorite child. I like them all. Yes.
What advice do you have for younger artists and writers?
It's the same advice for any person of any age. Start small. Don't try to write a long story first. Try writing a short story and seeing what your characters interact like, and then you can write longer and longer stories as you pick up steam. Hi.
I would like to know, what were your emotions when you were writing the book Smile?
My emotions. Pretty much the same thing as what the character is going through on the page. In fact, when I'm drawing, and if you look at me, I'm like making the same faces as the characters, and I'm feeling all these emotions. If it's a memoir, I'm like remembering everything that happened to me, and I'll be like really depressed, like, man, my friends are so mean to me. But then you finish the book and you feel great. So it was kind of like living through it all over again, but then I felt better when it was done.
Did you and your sister really fight as much as in Sisters?
Do you have a sister?
Yes.
How much do you guys fight?
I have 3 sisters.
And do you guys fight as much as the characters in the story?
Yes.
Then, yeah. Sisters have a way. Hi.
So in your book Ghosts, you had the little sister who had cystic fibrosis, and my cousin has cystic fibrosis, and not many people know about it. So I was wondering, how did you find out about cystic fibrosis and stuff?
I have a friend whose cousin has cystic fibrosis, and thematically, it worked really well with the story because the story is about a girl who can't breathe and her sister who has anxiety, and the sister has to be reminded sometimes to okay, and it's Maya who's telling her to stop and breathe. And then ghosts, and of course this is fiction, so I had to make my own mythology up here. I was like, well, ghosts can't breathe either. So Maya finds that she has something in common with the ghosts, but ghosts absorb the world around them, and that becomes their breath. And I think Maya kind of breathes emotionally for a lot of people. Hi.
Hi. So, how did your friends and family react to Smile, how you portrayed them in it?
My dad will be like, that's not what happened. But the thing is, it's my memories, and since I'm the one that's writing the story, I sometimes confer with my family on specific details, but every person is going to remember an incident a little bit differently. So we get the gist of it right. And what I like to tell people is that even if the facts aren't 100% true, what you remember and your emotions about that thing are always true.
Would you ever consider animating a movie from your books?
I don't know how to animate. So if somebody else wanted to do it, if anybody in this room is an animator and wants to animate it, we can talk afterwards. That'd be amazing.
Did any of the old friends that you have that you wrote about in Smile, did any of them realize that it was about them and talk to you about it?
Yes. I've gotten letters of apology from a few of them. Some of them didn't realize it was them, though, which is really awkward because we're still Facebook friends and stuff. Hi.
Hey, well, first, thank you for inviting me up for the excerpt.
You were amazing.
Thank you. And for my question, at the end of Ghosts, you said that you were at a Day of the Dead celebration. And did you actually see ghosts like Kat did in the book?
No, I did not actually see ghosts. It's a fictional story, but you can imagine them being there for sure.
Is it fun?
Absolutely, it's fun, but it's also a really respectful celebration where people are all there for their own reasons, but you're experiencing it together. So I was not sad, but I felt all of this sort of togetherness and a lot of emotion from all the people around me. So in fact, the scene that's in the book, I waited until after I had been to that celebration to draw it because I wanted to capture my own experiences there. So you know how Kat's in the story and she's just like, whoa.
That makes perfect sense.
That's how I felt. Well, thanks.
Interesting.
Oh, thanks. Hi.
Hi. So I was wondering, if you were any kind of food that is grown, not that you make, but if you were food that was grown, what kind of food would you be?
Food. Oh, I can't say pizza, can I?
No.
Pizza's not grown. Asparagus.
Okay.
It's like some people's most hated vegetable, but I love it.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi.
What was your favorite thing when you were a Girl Scout?
About the Girl Scouts?
Yeah.
Can you guess?
Cookies?
Yep. Definitely. Hi.
What was the most inspiring comic you read as a kid?
Oh man, I mean, for better or for worse, Calvin and Hobbes, Luann, Foxtrot, Bizarro, Dennis the Menace. I didn't read Peanuts until I was a little older, but I find that to be very inspiring too. And then I started reading indie comics like Bone, and that one inspired the heck out of me. Hi.
Do you and Amara still get along, or do you get along?
We don't live in the same city anymore, so we get along great. Actually, we do. We get along really well now. I see now how much we have in common. Hi.
When you're drawing your comics, what's the hardest detail you have to do?
Cars. Cars are hard to draw. And that's why I don't write too many comics. Wait, yes, I did write a comic about being on a road trip. What was I thinking? I don't draw comics about horses. There is a reason for that. Hi.
Is it a stressful or happy progress when you're making the comics?
It can be both. Mostly it's fun, but it's like any other job. You really do have to show up and put in a lot of hours every day, and my hand gets tired. That's one of the most stressful parts. And also sometimes if I'm trying to think of how a story ends and I can't do it, I'm just like, oh no, what am I gonna do? But then, I don't know, you run out of time and you just go with whatever whatever comes up in your brain.
Hi.
Hi.
When you finish one of your graphic novels, do you ever celebrate or rejoice or anything?
I had an orange soda when I finished Ghosts.
Okay.
You are jumping up and down.
How do you think of names for people who didn't really exist?
That's a good question. Katrina is named after La Katrina, which is an illustration of a skeleton lady that was done by a guy named Posada. And so she's actually a very famous image. And then Maya's name comes from, I've met a lot of kids named Maya, and they're always kind of like you. They're usually jumping up and down. And I just think Maya's an awesome name. And Cali comes from the state of California, which is really embarrassing. I don't know if the adults will know the song Going Back to Cali by LL Cool J. Gosh, when I was brainstorming that book, I was in the car, driving around my parents' neighborhood, and that song came on the radio, and I was like, that's it. Her name is Callie.
Are you going to write any more books about your life?
Well, the next one I'm working on is definitely going to be about my life. And then the two after that I have contracted, I can't talk too much about right now, but I do have 3 more books that are going to be coming out from Scholastic in the next 6 years. So at least one will be a memoir. Yeah. Thanks. So see you guys in 2022. Hi.
What happens when you get writer's block?
Oh, good question. Probably the same thing that happens when you get writer's block. You're just like, what am I going to do? So sometimes I just try to step away from my desk for a while. So I go to the beach, or I go hiking in the mountains, or I get in my car and I drive around and I listen to LL Cool J. But you know what? Inspiration's everywhere, and you never know when something's going to inspire you. So I try to read a lot of books. I try to watch a lot of TV and movies. I try to meet lots of people and go lots of places. And things inspire me everywhere.
Good to know.
Are you afraid of ghosts?
I don't know if I believe that ghosts exist. So it's hard to be afraid of something that doesn't exist. Yeah. If I knew they did exist, I'd be extremely afraid of them. That's why they look like snakes. Did you notice the... Maybe there's a connection there. Hi.
How much books have you wrote?
I have written 8 books. That's 4 Babysitters Club books, and then Smile, Drama, Sisters, and Ghosts? Did I say that one? Yeah, 8 books total.
That's a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi.
Do you ever write out the script of what people are saying before you draw the comics?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I will sit down and type out dialogue just because I can hear it in my head faster than I can draw it. But for the most part, like I showed you guys, my scripts are thumbnails. So they're just sort of the grid of different panels, and then the characters' heads almost need to be there sometimes before I can figure out what's coming out of their mouths. I need to see it in order to be able to hear it. But yes, I do have a notebook, and I'm always listening to people talking around me. And just the way that people talk sometimes gives me ideas. So you never know, guys.
Thank you.
Sure. Hi.
Other than in Smiles and Sisters, which character in your book represents you the best?
Do you mean in my memoirs or in my fictional work?
In your fictional work.
Oh, well, Callie's a little bit like me, but she's kind of more like who I wish I was. Like, she's great at getting an idea and then seeing it all the way to completion. And then Kat and I share anxiety. So she's worried about stuff a lot, and I admit that I am too, but I'm trying to work on getting better about that.
Thank you.
What inspired you to write about your family?
Them. We have so many stories, and I mean, the reason I started writing about my life was I had this horrible dental accident when I was 11. And it was a story I was telling people constantly. So people would be like, what happened to your teeth? And I'd be like, let me tell you what happened to my teeth. And then as I got older, the fake teeth that I had in my mouth started to turn a little bit gray. So sometimes people were like, what's wrong with the teeth in front of your mouth? They look different. So I had to explain. And every time I saw a different dentist, I had to explain. And I was like, I've explained this story so many times. What if I just like wrote the whole thing down? Yeah, that way I wouldn't have to explain it so much. So that's what I did. I just wrote my story down, and I realized that it's a great way to sort of deal with your memories and like stuff that's troubling you. Even you can write it down, and then you feel better about it afterwards. So,
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi.
Hi.
If you're like writing a story about your true life, then if you're like trying to remember what they're saying, do you have to like write the exact thing, or do you just like make it up if you don't remember, but you have a general idea of what they said?
Yes. That's exactly what I do. There's no way I could possibly remember the exact words that we said to each other. Although, I mean, you guys have access, I'm sure, to like videos that your parents have been taking since you were a little kid, right? And I have just a few of those. I only have one video of myself as a kid because my grandfather had this big video camera. I have like 5 minutes of video of me in my entire childhood, but I have a lot of photographs. And that's how the writer brain works, is you're just like, I can imagine what we were saying to each other when we were young.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Sure.
Do you plan on writing any sequels to any of your books, like Ghosts or Drama?
Sequels are tricky. And I'm not somebody who thinks in terms of series. I'm really somebody who thinks in terms of individual stories. So I feel like I say everything I want to say about the characters and their lives and their situations before the last page is turned. I don't like the idea of cliffhangers, but that's not to say that I would never write a story that had the same characters. So you know how Smile and Sisters are companion books, but it's not like exactly what happened next? There's always the possibility I could do that with one of my other stories too.
Thanks.
Like Callie in high school. Oh man, that'd be so cool. Somebody asked me today if Callie would be a Hamilton fan, and I was like, Callie would be like tweeting at Lin-Manuel like on a constant daily basis, trying to get him to like come to her school and hang out with her.
What is your favorite thing about Amara?
Oh, no one's ever asked me that question before, and I've never had to think about it before. So. She's one of the smartest people I've ever met. She's one of the most talented people I've ever met. And she's a really good friend to her friends. She cares about her friends more than just about anything. So there's a lot I admire about my sister.
Thanks.
Will you ever make any movies about Smile Sisters, Drama, and everything?
Well, I'm not a filmmaker, so if anybody here is a filmmaker and they want to talk to me afterwards, that's fine. I would love that. That'd be awesome. You should become a filmmaker. How about that?
That's my dream.
Awesome. Okay, we'll talk afterwards. Handshakes and business cards. I love this. Hi.
Hi. My parents said I might get braces soon. Do you have any advice about that?
If it's okay with your parents, just take some pain reliever before you go, and then ask if they'll get you a milkshake when it's all over. It's really not that bad. And my situation was extremely unusual. I had a big accident, so of course my dentistry work was going to be a little bit more extreme than most people's. Most people, and you guys can confirm this, it's like you're sore for a few days and you kind of have to get used to it, but then you do, and then it's just kind of normal, part of your mouth.
Thanks.
Hello. When I was standing on, had this weird idea for a question. You should write a book about how you are now. Because
like your fans and everything. And if you are, please include me. And I also want to. I also would like to bring out how much I enjoyed your book, Ghost, because I feel like, sort of like me and my sister, I'm just full of energy, and she's not.
Oh man, I can relate to that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, there's not much to say except thanks. Hi.
Have you ever thought about writing a book when you first published your first comic?
Oh, yes. I did think about that. And I might be writing about that at some point in the near future.
Okay. What would you be if you couldn't be an author?
I have no idea, to be honest. But this is kind of a shout out, and it's also kind of something I've realized is that I work with people called publicists at my publisher, Scholastic. There are people whose job it is to plan out where authors are going to go, and then make sure there's like a car to get them there, and they like book my flights, and then they talk to all the people at the bookstores about like the logistics and stuff. And that person is a publicist, and it's their job to make authors' lives easier when they go out on stage at the National Book Festival and stuff like this. So my amazing publicist is named Sheila Marie, and she's here. She's the one who took the picture. And Scholastic has really, really great support. So I think it would actually be fun to do that job, because I love writing emails to people, and I love looking at maps, and I love like booking hotel rooms and stuff. So I'm like, oh, that'd be so fun. They work super hard though. So yeah, maybe a publicist. I don't know.
Thank you.
For other authors, so that I don't have to be in this spotlight. That's the thing. Hi.
So in Ghosts, Cat is superstitious about the black cat. Did you get the superstitiousness from you or somebody else?
It's sort of a common superstition that a black cat crossing your path is bad luck. And because her name is Cat, I think she has this idea that she's bad luck too in some way. So yeah, I was working with certain common superstitions, but I was just also creating her as a unique character. So can I do one more question? Okay, we can do one more question. I'm so sorry, guys.
What do you think the easiest thing to draw is?
This is going to sound really lame when I answer this question. The easiest thing for me to draw is me. But I think that's because I look in a mirror every single day, and I'm used to the shape of my face. And I've been drawing stories about my life since I was 6 years old. So it's gotten to be very easy for me to do that. But when I have to draw like a new character, I'm like, whoa, this is really difficult and challenging. But the more times you draw a character, the easier it gets. So yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much. And thanks to the National Book Festival for having me as a guest.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.